A single bad answer during a traffic stop can turn your legal gun into the state's best evidence against you. And the scary part is, most gun owners talk themselves into trouble before the officer even finishes the question. Pause. Quick question before we continue. Are you subscribed? Because what I'm about to reveal could keep you from making a life-changing mistake with police. Hit that button now, because gun laws change fast and most people hear about the rules after they've already messed up. Now let's get into it. An officer looks at you and says, "Who told you to carry that?" It sounds casual, it sounds almost harmless, but don't get fooled. That question is not small talk. It is a setup question. It invites you to explain, justify, guess, ramble, and maybe even confess to something you did not need to say. So here are the 5 words I want you to remember. I choose to remain silent. That's it. Not a speech, not a debate, not a roadside law lecture. Just 5 simple words, said calmly, clearly, and respectfully. And yes, this matters even if you believe you did nothing wrong. In fact, it matters most when you believe you did nothing wrong. Because here's what just happened in that moment. The officer did not ask, "Are you safe?" He did not ask, "Do you have a permit?" He asked, "Who told you to carry that?" That wording pushes you to start talking about advice you got, what you thought the law was, where you learned it, and whether you actually understood it. And the second you start talking, you create risk. Maybe you say, "My buddy told me constitutional carry means I can carry anywhere." Bad move. Maybe you say, "The guy at the gun store said it was fine." Also bad. Maybe you say, "I thought my permit covered this state too." Now it gets worse. Because those answers can sound like confusion, carelessness, or even knowledge that you were unsure. And once your own words are on camera, they are hard to take back. Most people think the danger is the gun, but the truth is, the danger is often your mouth. Let me break this down for you. First, police are trained to listen for statements they can use later. If you tell them you were relying on your cousin, a YouTube video, or a cashier at a sporting goods store, that does not help you. It can make you sound reckless. Second, many gun cases are not about the gun alone. They become cases about intent, knowledge, location, notice, and whether you knew the rule. Your words can fill in gaps that the officer did not have before you spoke. Third, people panic when they feel accused. And panic makes people talk, fast, too much, out of order. They guess. They try to sound honest. They try to sound helpful. And that is exactly when trouble starts. Now, this is where it gets interesting. A lot of gun owners think, if I'm legal, I should just explain everything. No. Being legal is not the same as being safe during questioning. You can be legal and still talk yourself into a charge. You can be legal and still say something inaccurate. You can be legal and still create suspicion that was not there a minute ago. Have you ever noticed how people answer the question they wish they were asked instead of the one they actually got? That happens all the time in gun stops. Officer says, "Who told you to carry that?" The person hears, "Convince me you're one of the good guys." So they start talking. That is the mistake. Your job is not to win the argument on the roadside. Your job is to avoid giving evidence. That is why those 5 words matter so much. I choose to remain silent. Say them calmly. Say them once. Then stop talking. Not half silent, fully silent. Because here's the crazy part. Silence is not just about what you hide. It is about what you refuse to hand over for free. And before you think this sounds rude, let me say this clearly. You can be polite and still protect yourself. You can comply with lawful orders and still refuse to answer questions. Those 2 things can exist at the same time. You do not have to be hostile. You do not have to be dramatic. You do not have to prove anything in that moment. You just need control. If you're finding this helpful, imagine what you'll learn in my next video about the exact words that protect you when police start asking follow-up questions about your gun. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because the people who stay out of trouble are usually the people who prepared before the stop ever happened. Now let's talk about the part nobody explains well enough. Just staying quiet is not always enough. That shocks people. They think if they stop talking, that automatically protects them. But the safer move is to clearly say the words first, then stay quiet. I choose to remain silent. Why? Because courts have made it very clear that just sitting there mute is not always the same as clearly invoking your right. In plain English, if you want the protection, say it out loud. Make it unmistakable. That one detail matters a lot. So if an officer asks, "Who told you to carry that?" and you stare at the dashboard, that may not help you the way you think. But if you calmly say, "I choose to remain silent," now your position is clear. And yes, I know what some people are thinking. What if the officer gets mad? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But being nervous about awkwardness is not a reason to give up your rights. Here's what most people get wrong. They think talking can talk them out of danger. A lot of times, talking just creates more danger. One answer leads to another question, then another, then another. Before you know it, you're explaining where you were going, why you had the gun, rules, and cross state lines. See the trap now? The first question is rarely the last question. That's why your first answer matters so much. Now, quick legal note. This is educational information, not legal advice. Always consult an attorney for your specific situation. Also, do not confuse silence with noncompliance. This is important. If an officer gives a lawful order like, keep your hands where I can see them, you comply. If your state requires you to identify yourself or give notice that you're carrying, handle that according to the law. Different states have different rules. The goal is to avoid volunteering extra information. That means you do not lie, do not argue, do not reach suddenly, and do not make jokes. Imagine you're driving home and the officer asks, who told you to carry that? If you say, officer, I choose to remain silent, you stop the free flow of bad facts. Hey, 73% of people watching aren't subscribed. Don't be part of that group. Join the people who stay ahead of gun laws. Click subscribe now. Now let's go one step deeper. A lot of people wait for Miranda. Big mistake. Miranda warnings usually come up in custody, but roadside statements matter just as much. Protect yourself early. That means when the question comes, you already know your answer. I choose to remain silent. This phrase stops you from making things worse. Do not try to sound smart. The roadside is not a courtroom. Understand the difference between required and volunteered information. Every gun owner needs to know their local law. Silence is protection, not guilt. Repeat the words. I choose to remain silent. Then stop. Clean, simple, controlled. Subscribe for updates. The safer answer is short and clear. Remember, do not resist. Just stop handing out information. Share this video. Final disclaimer. This is educational info, not legal advice. Talk to a qualified attorney as fast as possible.